Welcome to my channel where we talk about cool cars, cool technology, and alternative fuels. Welcome to my 2003 Nissan Murano. This car came to me for the low price of free with a high mileage of 300,000 miles and an engine that was going knock, and a few miles into my wonderful ownership experience, the transmission grenaded itself. And so I decided that instead of sending this thing to the junkyard where probably most of these with 300,000 miles belong, I decided I'm just going to turn it into a project car and see what I can make happen with it. So of course the first step in doing that was making it drive again, and it needed a new transmission. Now I could put a CVT back in it, but that would be no fun. I could put an automatic transmission back in it, but that might blow up before the CVT does. Or I could put a manual transmission in it. And of course, you know what I chose. Door number 3, take a look underneath the hood. This thing's manual swap. If you look down in there, really seems pretty stock. There's not a whole lot that screams this is a manual transmission. But if you do notice something a little different, that kind of shiny new hose there, and that's actually where the clutch line goes from the flexible hose on the transmission to the solid line that goes back to the master cylinder. Apart from that, there's no changes underneath the hood. It's just a transmission and the supporting hardware and all the stuff to make it work. So if you're not familiar with the Nissan Murano, this is basically just a Nissan Altima with a bigger body on top. You get the same VQ35DE engine that you could have had in the Altima, and some of the other components are similar as well. Now, to make this manual transmission conversion happen, I used the 5-speed out of a 2002 Nissan Altima, bolted that to our 3.5 liter engine, and then set about modifying like crazy to make it actually work and run and drive. Primarily, there was an issue with the track width. This is a slightly different track width than the Altima. The CV shaft for the Murano, while not exactly the correct length, does fit on the driver's side. But on the passenger side, the Murano's CV shaft does not seal properly in the transmission. It's a different size. So I had to use the Altima one. Well, the Altima one isn't long enough, so then I had to change the length of it in order to make that work. Then had to do a custom mount for the transmission that bolts to the body over here, if you're familiar with the Murano and its CVT. The CVT bolts to the subframe. The manual transmission I've got in here actually bolts to the body with a rubber isolator so it doesn't like try to rip itself out when the engine rocks in there like that. But apart from that, it's pretty much what you would see if you pop the hood on a 5-speed Nissan Altima, and with the 5-speed, it is quite fun to drive. Also up front, changed the headlights and repainted the grille with spray paint. As you can tell, this project kind of has a different theme. It's kind of goes along with the theme of this car being free with a bazillion miles on it. It's not exactly supposed to be super nice or super high quality, just reliable, fun transportation, nice SUV. So as we climb inside, you'll see a few different components that you would not normally see in a Nissan Murano. They're all from the junkyard, of course, in keeping with the theme of this project. We'll start with the shifter here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and reverse. This is out of a Mazda 3. And if you look down in the pedal box, we've got, of course, 1, 2, and 3. That's actually a brake pedal from an 07 Sentra. It's been heavily modified to become the clutch pedal for this thing. And that occupies the space that the parking brake would have originally occupied. And so we've got a parking brake up here in the form of a parking brake from a 2004 Altima. So that might all seem pretty straightforward, just kind of stringing a bunch of junkyard parts together to make this thing go forward. And I am here to tell you that that is not the case. It is not very straightforward at all. Certainly very challenging. I actually took up the majority of time on this project, all the custom fabrication and everything. But also, kind of in the same theme as a lot of my other projects, I wanted to have a nice user experience. And if you come into the inside of the vehicle here, it's not a digital dash or anything super flashy, but you'll notice that with the key on, engine off, there's no warning lights. We don't have a CVT light, we don't have a check engine light. All the powertrain lights are as they should be. And that's, of course, by design. So if you look at the Prindle display, we're currently in neutral and it displays neutral. If we put it into a gear, it displays drive because the Murano, of course, with the CVT, didn't originally have anything other than just park, reverse, neutral, drive, and low. So I figured the best thing to show there was drive. If we put it in reverse, we've got reverse. So, of course, displaying some information there, you'll probably kind of have an idea that there might be something more going on underneath and just maybe taking out some light bulbs or something like that. There's a little bit of technical wizardry going on to make this dashboard work as it should. Also, cruise control works as it should. If you kind of know how Nissan's cruise control work, that might also kind of indicate that something is a little bit different than just throwing some junkyard parts in here. And you'd be right if you thought that something was just a little different. Underneath the dashboard, over in the corner there is the 4th generation of my control module, very similar to the ones I had in the Lincoln. Those were the 3rd generation. This one's been redesigned to improve reliability, make it harder to blow up the microcontroller if there's a short or you do something wrong or something just kind of goes awry. It's also cheaper and easier to take in and out of the vehicle. The electrical connectors are easier to access, and it's physically smaller. So just kind of a redesign to make it better all the way around. Now the function of that universal control module is, as you might have guessed by this point, emulate the original CVT controller. Now the CVT controller is still installed in the vehicle, and it has one very important purpose: turn the reverse lights on. Apart from that, it's isolated from the data network, and the CAN network, instead of going to the CVT controller, goes to my control module. My control module emulates the CVT controller, makes everything happy, and changes data as necessary for things like the Prindle display, or to send the engine computer vehicle speed so that your cruise control works, and also tell it when to adjust the idle depending on what gear you're in, if you're just stopped in neutral versus you have maybe the clutch pushed in with it in a gear ready to take off. It does those kinds of things, talks on the data network, does a lot of ones and zeros to make everything happen and make it such that anybody that knows how to drive a manual can jump in this thing, fire it up, drive away, and have no issues with it. So thank you so much for joining me on this tour of a little bit different vehicle than what I normally work on. I certainly enjoyed working on it. It's a hoot to drive, and it was cool to really explore the emulation capabilities of my control board and also implement the 4th revision of it and just kind of do a function check and make sure that the new design works. Thank you so much. I look forward to next time, which, if you look closely on the inside when we are filming, you might have a sneak peek at what I'm working on next. Thank you so much for watching.